Good evening. You're watching Views at 7 with Mahnur Qureshi. The world has entered a new phase of uncertainty where the military power, political signaling and obviously the economic power are reshaping the course of action and course of the world. So in tonight's Views at 7, we'll discuss about three major developments that are reshaping our regional politics and obviously the global politics as well. We'll start with our neighboring country, India, where India has approved $5.46 billion for its new military purchasing. We'll discuss about that, how would it impact the strategic balance and especially its relations with the neighboring countries. And then in program Views at 7, we'll move forward and discuss about the latest speech of President Trump as US marks 250 years of independence. This latest speech of President Trump comes under the spotlight as it comes after the Iran conflict. We'll discuss about that as the world is watching the next signal of US President Trump about its foreign policy, especially for the Middle East and for the Gulf. And then in program Views at 7, will unfold another very important aspect, that is the global price hike, the global oil prices, the fuel market, as OPEC Plus is expected to increase its production. But we'll start with our neighboring country, India, as India has approved the purchase of military equipment worth $5.46 billion, including missiles, kamikaze drones, electric warfare, and obviously the anti-drone system there, the technology and the surveillance platforms. And at the same time, when it comes to India, the New Delhi is actually reducing its dependence on Russia by expanding defense ties with the countries like US and France, while investing heavily in the domestic defense manufacturing. Under its self-reliance strategy, the move reflects India's broader military modernization drive, which we have been witnessing since last few years, with an annual defense budget of about $85 billion. That is raising debate over its impact on the regional security and the strategic stability, and especially its relations with the neighboring countries. To unfold this aspect of it, we are joined by a pool of panelists. We are joined by Major General retired Zahid Mahmood, who is defense analyst. Major General retired Zahid, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining in. What do you think that what strategic message does India's $5.46 billion military procurement sent to its neighboring countries, especially Pakistan?
Yes, thank you very much, Mahnur, for having me at your show. Always a pleasure. But look, we should have no doubt, and the world has witnessed that this state, India, they have applied their military powers. They have used their conventional forces against only one country, and that is Pakistan. So every defense program, every program related to their military is beyond any doubt is mostly it is Pakistan specific. Though in the past they have been moving forward with a charade design of a net security provider, in which they have been giving this impression to United States that they'll be playing a role of a net security provider, a kind of a watchdog in the Indo-Pacific strategy, and they might be challenging China. But whatever has happened in Galan and in against the Chinese, so that is clear reflection that Indians have no intent, rather no capacity, capability and will to fight any other country other than Pakistan. And why they're fighting Pakistan? Not to pursue the political objectives of India, but to pursue the objectives of a Sangh Parivar, which is pursuing the political objectives through the use of military instrument, and they're saffronizing every aspect of their military application. So let there be no doubt that these all preparations are against Pakistan. But having said that, I think Pakistan is balanced. Alhamdulillah, Pakistan is cognizant of the fact. And Pakistan, maybe our preference is using the diplomatic political means to address all the issues. But if the war is thrusted upon, Marka-e-Haq is a recent demonstration of Pakistan's capacity, Pakistan's capability, and most importantly, the intent and the will of the nation of Pakistan, the people of Pakistan. So they will carry on with that. Other than that, Mahnur, if quickly I may say that these modernization drives, which we have witnessed in the recent past also, and this has become a kind of a lot of corruption is involved in that. So these modernization plan, none of their modernization plan, they have met those objectives in those periods. So a lot of corruption scandals, a lot of things happened. So this has become a kind of a trend in India So whenever they come out with a new modernization plan, a lot of corruption and a lot of under table deals are done. So this is what the nature of the state is, and this is what they are doing.
All right, so General Zahid, as compared to India, Pakistan is not spending that much for its military purchase. So what do you think, that is India's growing defense spending aimed primarily at deterrence, or does it indicate preparations for the offensive military operations as well?
Well, once you assess your enemy, Manur, you don't go into the intents of the enemy. With Prime Minister Modi in office, I think he's in habit of, rather he has this character of using the conventional forces. He believes in using the power and might. Although that has the recent attempt has given more damage to their repute. They have been trying to portray to the world that they are a new power. In all domains, in socio-political domains, they have shown that they have become a kind of a wish guru, the world teacher. So all those campaigns, all those charade adoption of mottos and slogans, they were buried by Pakistani response. But having said all this, I think Prime Minister Modi, he has really saffronized the military, and he has that mind also using those applications, and he has done it in the recent past. So, as a responsible country, as a country which is very well prepared to take on this military aggression if it comes from India, I think Pakistan needs to be equipping themselves, needs to be up with the ready and up with the response, and which Pakistan is capable of. But Modi do have the intent, and he already has demonstrated it.
All right, so given the fact that Pakistan has shown the second strike capability last year, what do you think that India's push for the indigenous defense production, would affect the balance of power in South Asia? Because
Of
as
course, it is.
actually you have mentioned that we cannot look at the intent of a neighboring country, but given the fact that they are investing a lot and we are not, and their defense production or their military purchase is always Pakistan centric. So what do you think about it?
Yes, of course, Manu. There is no doubt. As far as second strike is concerned, primarily these second strikes, these terminologies are used for the nuclear, war, unfortunately. But anyways, Pakistan will try its best. There is a great asymmetry. Let there be no doubt. Our defense budget is around $10 billion. Their defense budget is around 85, as you have mentioned. But this is 85, which is they're mentioning. On ground, they're going to spend more than $85 billion, around $103 billion, because the rest of the money they have to pumped into their proxies, which they're who are waging war against Pakistan through the soils of Afghanistan. So that is another dimension which is probably not told to the world, but this is 21st century. Everybody understands what they are putting in. So there's a lot of asymmetry. But having said that, the Pakistani response will revolve around the deterrence. If we fail to achieve maintain that deterrence through, I'm deterrence talking in terms of the conventional forces only. If that is not maintained, then Pakistan has the capacities to regain that deterrence. That was what Marka-Haq was all about. So Marka-Haq was primarily launched to regain the deterrence against Operation Sindoor 1.0. Now they are going on with Operation 2.0, Sindoor 2.0, which is by using the non-state actors, these Talibans and elements in Balochistan. So they say that Operation Sindoor 2.0 will come, but it is already in progress. So if they come with Operation 2.0, 3, 4, 5, whatever, Pakistan is cognizant of this threat, and Pakistan is very well prepared. Not only Pakistani military, as I said earlier, that the will of the nation people have seen. The whole world has witnessed that. So whole nation is prepared, and they're rather waiting. Now in the strategic mind in Pakistan, who used to support the dialogue, who used to support the political, diplomatic efforts to mitigate this threat which is coming from India, and to resolve the problems. Even they have been compelled to think that Pakistan will have to be very, very strong. So, you have to become the hard nut to be cracked. So that's exactly what Pakistan is doing, to making themselves prepared. That's what the hard power is. The hard power does speak. So that we have been compelled to do that, and that's what the strategic environment in this part of the world. So Pakistan is very well prepared for this, for any eventuality in the future.
So what do you think, that would it trigger the regional arm race as well?
Of course, it does. It does. There is a lot of socioeconomic deprivations in this part of the world. But once you have an enemy at your neighborhood, which has recently demonstrated that they will not, stop making aggression against your country, then of course, you have to be cognizant of this fact, and you have to be prepared, very well prepared to take on that enemy. So that's exactly what the arm race is all about. So unfortunately, Pakistan has an existential threat from India. So it's kind of a compulsion for us to get into this. Not the real, I mean, to make yourself strong. It's not that we are making our military strong, or we are supposed to be making our military strong as we might have some designs against any other country. Pakistan believes in, mutual, respectful coexistence. But if we are compelled to, do something in the military domain, Pakistan will do that. So that's why it's kind of a compulsion for Pakistan. There's no other choice.
All right, so General Zahid, let's unfold another aspect of it. What do you think, that why is India shifting away from the Russian military equipment to its domestic suppliers and to France and the Western suppliers? What is the reason behind it?
Mahmood, they portray a lot many things, indigenization, a lot of projects. As I said earlier, there's a lot of huge corruption in the Indian military system. So there are big beneficiaries. This country is run by 7-8 persons. Let's be very frank. Few Brahmins and then few the businessmen. It is the no more India which they used to claim it's a secular India, it's a Gandhi's India, it's a modern India. These all projects are being run by 6-7 individuals. They have kept Modi face at front, who is a low-cost Hindu. Though they portray, but he's the biggest Brahman in himself by his approach. So they benefit each other. This India is of Ambanis and this India is of Adanis. So a lot of corruption is going on. But anyway, this is a slogan. They will go and make big deals all over the world. And their domestic, though they are working hard to improve upon their domestic military industry. But having said that, there are so many aspects related to this factor.
All right, thank you so much, General Zahid, for joining in Views at 7. We were joined by Defense Analyst, Major General retired General Zahid Mahmood, to discuss about the latest approval of a budget by India for its military equipments. To discuss about the same issue, we are joined by Senior Analyst, Professor Dr.Tughral Yamin. Dr. Tughral, welcome to Views at 7. When we discuss about this thing, we have seen that India is spending a lot for its military budget, for its military purchasing. So what do you think when it comes to the spending for the social and the economic development in India? We have seen their cockroach Janata Party is highlighting a lot of issues. They are being deprived from a lot of things. So what do you think, that has this obviously India's budget, expending military budget effort by India, leave enough room for the social and the economic development in India, and what needs to be done in this regard? Because the country is spending a lot for its military budget, a lot for its defense, but not for the economic development, not for the development of youth, not for the social development. What do you think about it?
Thank you very much for inviting me to your program. There are a number of things that I want to talk to you about this. One, the Indian ambitions knows bounds. They want to become a regional hegemon, maybe a superpower, when they get the right opportunity. Yes, they have problems. They have a severe economic problem. There are people who live below the poverty line, and they have accepted poverty as a reality. They are not bothered about people who are not getting enough or who are dying because of malnutrition or things of that sort. So they've accepted that. They want to become a regional hegemon. That is their ultimate aim. So therefore, they are expanding their military. And one important thing that we must not forget is that in the May conflict last year, they were soundly beaten, although they did not face of it accept it as a defeat. And they say that Operation Sindoor is barely on hold and it is continuing, which I don't think it is on hold anymore. It is fizzled out. But their ambitions to acquire more and more military hardware is nothing new. they started doing this immediately after the 1962 defeat at the hands of the Chinese. Aero realized that he cannot afford to have a weak army. So he started rebuilding his forces. And over time,
Dr.
they
Tughral,
had
that is
acquired.
not, that is actually true that they are trying to rebuild, they are trying to shift their reliance, they are trying to work on their self-protection. But I'll discuss about their domestic politics as well. I'll discuss about what are the issues which actually youth is facing right now in India. But what do you think that can generating a self-reliance on the defense manufacturing, can India make itself strategically more independent and more stronger in the regional conflicts?
I think this self-reliance slogan or mantra is also outdated. India has been free for 80 years. Why should they be now talking about self-reliance in defense industry? They inherited all the defense industry that the British left behind. We didn't get any ordnance factory. Our ordnance factory came into being much later. I recall when I was a child in 1965 war, there was a campaign to collect 1 paisa from every citizen, and then we were 10 crores. So it was said that a tank costs 1 crore, so everybody was donating for that. But we were able to make our own defense industry, and we now have a fairly well-organized defense industry. We manufacture aircraft, we manufacture tanks, we manufacture artillery. So when India talks about self-reliance, I sometimes wonder what is wrong with these people. They should have been self-reliant in defense industry long time ago. But the fact of the matter is that they relied on foreign equipment for a very long time, and they still do. They have been acquiring military hardware from erstwhile Soviet Union and then Russia, and Russia still remains to be one of their biggest uh, defense partners. The BrahMos missile system is also being made with active cooperation of Russia. And then we saw that in the May conflict, they had purchased Rafale aircraft from the French, which was sadly a big failure. So, and they have been trying to build the light combat aircraft and helicopters and urgent tanks and other things. And most of these the equipment that they have been trying to build
How they make
indigenously or
narrative.
domestically have been failures. Sorry?
You have rightly mentioned, Dr. Tughral, that's how they make narrative, that's how they make up things, that's how they propagate against the other countries, or sometimes they brag about themselves, be it defense, be it their military, or be it their other issues. So let's talk about another very different aspect of it, as we have seen that wherever PM Modi goes, he actually receives I think unusual or a large number of awards or certificates. What do you think that? And most of the certificates, most of the awards are not pre-announced. So what do you think? All of a sudden, it's a surprise that he's getting a lot of certificates, a lot of awards. What do you think? Is it actually a part of image building or propagating in the favor of PM Modi? And what is the strategy behind it? Why they are doing so?
Yeah, Manur, I think you're quite right. This is an exercise in image building. They want to show that they are a nation which is recognized as a high achieving nation, and therefore they circulate all these certificates, etc. I don't think it's difficult to generate certificates with AI. You can do anything. So I don't think this is the true worth of Indians. But what I want to bring across is that the large scale inductions that they do, even the S-400 that they acquired from Russia, it was targeted by Pakistani missiles and it was destroyed. So the vast amount of equipment that they are importing, it's a man behind the gun, you see. It's not just the equipment that you import. Once you import an equipment, then you have to make sure that the man behind the gun is efficient enough, or he understands the machinery. Otherwise, you can keep on acquiring Rafale or S-400s or other high-tech equipment. But if the man is not motivated, if he's not willing to fight, and if he doesn't have the confidence in the weapon and equipment, he's not going to deliver on the battlefield. And there's motivation also. If the person is motivated enough or not, whether he's willing to die for
Wars are
his
not
country.
being, actually, we cannot fight a war with military equipments only. There's a will, there's, motivation behind. And obviously, if there is an actual cause, the people behind the equipment actually work with all of their efforts, with all of their hearts to work for their own countries. But we have seen that the people inside the India actually know that what they are doing with the regional countries, how they are manipulating things, how they are twisting things. But one thing is actually confusing me. As I have already mentioned that most of the awards are not pre-announced and awards are created right before the arrival of PM Modi. So, does it actually raise questions about the legitimacy of such kind of awards? What do you think about it? Because they are praising them.
In India,
Like the group
as
of
in
people
many other
praising
countries,
each other for their collective benefits. What do you think about it?
yes, you're absolutely right, Mahmood. People in power really think about the common man or woman. They are more interested in enhancing their own image to show that they are macho figures. And Mr. Modi is very much in the habit of saying that he's got a 56-inch chest and he wants to browbeat everybody, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all the neighboring countries. But they also know that Pakistan is no cakewalk. We can give them a bloody nose. And they are also quite aware that they cannot they cannot fight China because China is a big power and it's a very strong power, a very strong military power. They've not been able to actually uh, fight them in Ladakh, as we saw a couple of summers ago, few summers ago. Again, they were beaten in hand-to-hand combat. They were beaten. So, if they don't have the interest of common man at heart, then being a big military power will not make them a big power. You can have any number of tanks, you can have any number of aircraft, you can have any number of submarines, you can have any number of artillery guns. If the common man is not happy, and I'm sure there are several pockets in India where people are not happy with Mr. Modi's policies. There are
Very right. If
insurgencies
whatever you are purchasing, it doesn't matter how much you are purchasing for the military equipments. If common man is not happy inside your country, then actually it is not a win for the democracy, for the political government, for the military there. Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Tughral Yamin, for joining in Views at 7. Joined by Professor Yamin, his senior analyst, and we were discussing about the latest approval of budget for the military purchase in India. So now moving forward and discuss about another important yet complex situation where we have seen that United States is involved, as always, in the major decisions of the world. And United States 250th Independence Day celebrations came at a politically sensitive moment this time, just weeks after the Iran conflict, which has intensified debate over the President Donald Trump's foreign policy, while the White House projects the military operations as a demonstration of American strength. Trump is also facing growing domestic scrutiny over the cost, the risk, the long-term consequences of another military confrontation in the Middle East. Against this backdrop, this anniversary speech actually by the President Trump is being closely watched, not only as a national celebration but also as a signal of how US may shape its future foreign policy and prepare politically for the 2026 midterm elections. To discuss about that, we are joined by Meirowitz, who is a political analyst, and he has joined us from New York. Welcome to the show, Mark. What do you think, that was President Trump's Independence Day speech primarily a national celebration, or was it just an attempt for the political image building or to maintain the political momentum after the Iran conflict?
I mean, candidly, I don't think this had much to do about Iran. It was really a celebration of American history. And, some of the things they had on there were veterans from many of our very significant wars, World War II, Vietnam, Korea. And then some of these veterans are over 100 years old. And he had flags presented from American history. So basically, fireworks. So I think to answer your question, I think was geared to be a national celebration, although the president also highlighted his own contributions and things that he had achieved. So at the same time, and it's not unusual for President Trump to do that, he was also, emphasizing his own contributions to American history.
About the same speech, we are joined by political analyst Khurram Shehzad Saab. He has joined us from Washington DC. Khurram Shehzad Saab, welcome to the show. So as we are discussing about the latest speech of President Trump, all eyes are on US, especially after this latest speech, after the conflict of Iran. What do you think that, considering the fact there is a lot of domestic pressure inside the country, so how much domestic political pressure is Trump facing over the military operations against Iran, and did his speech seeks to address those concerns as well?
Sure. Thank you for having me. President Trump's speech touched three brief points in his it's supposed to be a 250th anniversary speech, but he mentioned military, he mentioned great patriotism, and he mentioned the strength of U.S. strength and the history at the same time. But while I was there in Washington, I see it was a full fledged of military display. 52 bomber was flying over the Capitol. Hundreds of thousands of people were there, and the F-16 other plane was flying all over the U.S. Capitol space. And then before his speech, we see the veteran from World War II, Vietnam War. They were also there. They were celebrated. There were songs about them. And when President Trump started his speech, he started from the military power the U.S. had. And then he mentioned World War I, World War II, Vietnam War. And then he came back to Venezuela and Iran. And then he mentioned the Iranian, we sank 159 Iranian ship. Now they are underwater. And they mentioned that U.S. have not displayed the full American military strength. But if things come Americans' way, we will hit it hard. So that was one of the things that President Trump has been saying it all over the America during his speeches, and this was not the same. Not different here in this 250th anniversary speech. And then he mentioned the American SAVE Act, where Americans must present their IDs before they cast a vote. And for the same reason, when President Trump lost in 2020 election, this act also protects the President Trump's act on that the mail-in balloting has to be. Mail-in balloting has to have a reason to behind it. Somebody's on military, out of station, out of America for military reasons, or somebody has a valid reason to not come into the center to cast a vote. So that is one thing that President Trump briefly touched. And the second part, President Trump mentioned the communism. President Trump mentioned the communism where the American military has been fighting across America, across the world. And he mentioned Vietnam War, he mentioned World War II, and then he mentioned that, no, this is coming into America. He did not mention Senator Bernie Sanders or Socialist Democrat, New York Mayor, the Zohran Mamdani. He did not mention those names, but he was saying this is time for you to go out and root out those communist element in the country. So, the communism was one of the things that, everybody was talking about President Trump's position, and President Trump did bring that into the speech.
Thank you so much, Khurram Saab, for such a detailed answer. We'll unfold different aspects of it as well moving forward towards you, Mark. What do you think that, did the speech suggest that U.S. is moving towards the more confrontational foreign policy, particularly for the Gulf, for the Middle East? Because they were just talking about the supremacy of India, they were just talking about their own policies, or it might be considered as I already mentioned, that it might be considered as a campaign for the midterm elections. So what do you think that? Is it a target for the Middle East and for the Gulf as well?
Again, I'd like to comment on my colleague's points because that relates directly to your question. It is true that the president mentioned World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and the veterans. He did, in passing, mention Venezuela and Iran. He is the president, and he's entitled to talk about that, and he believes those to be accomplishments. Similarly, talking about communism in this country, that's not so surprising because America has stood against communism traditionally. Way back in its history, we confronted the Soviet Union, and I think the president's point is he's concerned that communism, or maybe it's called socialism and has in quotations, but he is identifying it as radical socialism, okay? And he has the entitled to speak about that. And yes, you are right that this relates to the midterm elections, and that's what he's concerned about. And this is a political leader. But I think for the most part, the program was festive and celebratory of America. About the Save America Act, which was mentioned, that's another thing that's sitting in the Congress that the president wants to have passed. It is not unusual or surprising for a president to speak about legislation that the president supports to try to get some passage of that legislation. Whether you agree or disagree with the idea that voters should have to show ID, that's really not the point. So, on balance, I thought it was a very amazing celebration. $90 million were spent on this, and it was quite extraordinary. Americans will debate everything, but at the same time, I don't think it was focused on foreign policy at all. And it wasn't focused on domestic policy at all. It just was Trump's agenda in the context of America 250, which is a very, very important milestone. The other milestone is the midterms election, and that's absolutely a fact. America is a democracy. We have congressional elections every 2 years and presidential elections every 4 years. And so the president's entitled to discuss politics and to try to speak to the American people, and which he was able to do directly.
All right, Mr. Mark, your point is well taken. What do you think, Mr. Khurram, about it? Do you have any remarks over what Mark has said? And what do you think that after the Iran war, is Washington likely to rely more on the military deterrence than diplomacy in dealing with the regional crisis or the regional issues they are actually facing right now?
Yeah, I spoke to many delegates there who were present at the venue at the National Mall after the speech. I spoke to them, and they were saying they were one of the biggest thing that President Mr. Diplomacy. The President Trump and his team has done so much diplomacy in the Iranian conflict, and there was no mention of it. President Trump mentioned the foreign war. President Trump mentioned the military supremacy. President Trump mentioned Iranian, how they sank the 159 ships. But President Trump never mentioned how much effort it took to get to the point where diplomacy took place, where the Pakistan played a key role into that war, and then the both countries were sitting and talking for months to get the things resolved. And especially when President Trump talked about the state of Hormuz, where it is open, and it is open for business, and those kind of things. But President Trump must have mentioned the diplomacy. President Trump must have mentioned the allies, and President Trump must have mentioned the things that mattered for American people for this Iranian conflict. And the second part, which where many international correspondents and international diplomats who are there at the arena, at the National Mall, they mentioned that President Trump did not mention the foreign policy briefly, how the 250th anniversary actually linked to the foreign relation and allies support and strength that the U.S. has always carried along with. It was mentioned, it was greatly missed. And also they mentioned that these are the speeches they have been listening to many states. Before President Trump came to Washington, the same speech was given in Richmond with President Trump there for one of the ceremony. So I think that it was another conventional speech. If you see the Ronald Reagan speech, it was the same arena, the National Mall, but it was a totally different speech for ceremonial anniversary when there was the time. But there were people are disappointed. I'm not saying in the opposition of it, but they were disappointed that it was another conventional speech on the 250th mark for the United States, and it would have done in a different way. But the way the military presence was there, white nationalists with the white mask was there, and the whole environment, the America First, obviously that was the theme of the speech which was given to us before they went. The America First was the theme, but it became a military label speech where veterans were there, the 52 bombers were there, the people were marching like they are marching in a parade. All those things were related to military. It's not American way. American way is more of a diplomacy, foreign relation, culture integration, different dances, different countries' music. All those things are actually the part of celebration, but this was a unique celebration. Obviously, we were celebrated. We were part of the celebration. We sang the American anthem. We did all those things while we were there. But at the same time, when President Trump came, it was more of a how in the history we have done the military exercises, how in the past we have done the Iranian conflict.
All right, your point is well taken. Thank you so much, Khurram Shehzad, for joining in. We're joined by political analyst Khurram Shehzad, and he has joined us from Washington, D.C. We are just discussing about the latest speech of President Trump as U.S. marked 250 years of independence. Moving towards you, Mark, what do you think that was Trump's emphasis on the patriotism, military strength, and national unity is also designed to energize the Republican voters ahead of the midterm elections there?
Well, sure. But I think I need to comment on what was just said because I think it misses the point completely. This is America 250. And part of America 250, of course, is looking back to the Declaration of Independence, but also to American history and having the veterans there. I thought it was a very good speech. And you never know what to expect with President Trump. I thought it was a very good speech. And bringing the veterans there, I mean, come on. These men were over, and one was 104, 107. One of the veterans got up and saluted the flag. I mean, this is America, and we are proud of these veterans who went off, particularly World War II and Korea and Vietnam and all these battles, because if the United States had not done that, then the world would have collapsed and would have been under Nazism. It would be under Germany. It would be under Japan. They would have defeated the entire peaceful world. Now, the point about diplomacy, I think, is very, very important. President Trump has offered the olive branch of diplomacy to the Iranians. I don't understand the point of having that as the central issue of America 250. And yes, no question, it's very good, the point you say. Patriotism, national unity, energizing voters. Well, as I said before, the president is a political leader. He has midterm elections coming. I don't believe it is so such a disparity to have the president speak to these issues, talk about his ideas. But if the question is about diplomacy, and that people and pundits, and by the way, those pundits and those analysts and those people in Washington that have all these comments, I think they miss the boat completely about what this is all about. Americans, like everyone around the world, is entitled to celebrate their country's achievements. And one achievement is, of course, the president's olive.
Mark, I'm not going to ask you any other question about the President Trump's speech. I'm going to ask about the other things, especially the upcoming midterm elections and especially the conflict with Iran. So what do you think that? Could the Iran conflict become a defining political issue in the midterm election with both Republicans and Democrats using it to shape their campaign for the upcoming midterms election? What do you think?
No question, no question. The Iran conflict is the pivotal issue in the upcoming midterms. And this is what has motivated President Trump's approach to this, because, and you could say kind of pressure on the president to try to get this thing resolved as quickly as possible because of the ramifications on the American economy, gas prices, the market, the whole situation in trade and oil, and that does relate to the Strait of Hormuz, and it does relate to all those other issues. But for a political leader like President Trump, yes, the midterm Iran is, I agree with you, the defining political issue. If the Republicans lose the midterm elections, then to carry your excellent question forward, the Iran conflict will be the definitive issue if the Democrats take the House, because what's going to happen likely, and Trump has acknowledged this, is the Democrats are going to impeach or accuse the president again in the House for a third time. And the one issue they're going to have on the list is going to be Iran, in the argument that the Democrats are making that this war was not authorized, it was not proper, it was ill thought out, and so forth and so on. So your question is very profound because it's not just an issue upcoming in the midterms, but it's going to be the issue depending on the result in the midterms. And yes, both Republicans and Democrats
All
are
right,
using this
Mark,
to shift
at the
their
end, I want your brief remarks. What do you think that looking ahead, should the world expect the Trump administration to pursue more military and interventions, or will it shift towards, the diplomacy after the demonstrating its military capabilities, which the world has seen, which we all have seen? What do you think that should the Trump administration move from military to diplomacy?
Not up to me, but I would say it's up to Iran. In other words, that's my short answer. If Iran wants to come to the table, work with the Pakistani mediators, with the United States, have good faith negotiations after the president offered them diplomacy, then I think we're on our way to a peaceful solution. But if they're going to keep on being aggressive on the Strait of Hormuz, if they're not going to come to the table to talk about the nuclear issue, which is President Trump's main issue, then I have to say I'm very, very concerned. So I think the answer is it's really not the Trump administration. It's really looking to Iran, working with the very capable Pakistani negotiators, mediators, to sit there with the parties and have direct talks, both talking, not through all kinds of intermediaries. I talk here, you talk there. Sit down, talk in good faith, work something up, and I think Trump is amenable to that. And I'm hopeful there'll be peace. That's all I can say. That's my short answer.
All right, thank you so much, Mark, for joining in Views at 7 and sharing your views with us. We were joined by Mark Meirowitz, who's political analyst, and he has joined us from New York. So moving forward towards another very important thing to discuss about the global price hike, which we have seen after the Middle Eastern crisis. Moving forward towards the latest statement by Organization of Petroleum Exporting Company that OPEC Plus is expected to approve another increase in oil production for August, continuing its gradual rollback of earlier output cuts. The proposed increase of around 188,000 barrels actually it comes as a global oil market stabilized after the recent Middle Eastern issues which we have seen in the latest few months, or we can say that latest few weeks. So to discuss about that, we are joined by Mr. Owais Mir, who is an energy expert. Owais, what do you think? Why is OPEC Plus is increasing the oil production despite the ongoing uncertainty in the global economy, in the global oil market? We have seen that there's a lot of uncertainty. We cannot actually plan for the next quarter. Things are, unfolding by every second. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Do I'm audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. Yes, because this is one of the most critical factor, as you know, the situation which is evolving and which is regarding the Hormuz or this. One thing you should keep in mind that all this disruption or stoppage, especially in the related to the output of OPEC, which was yesterday or very recently being talked about it was something which was related to the scope, which is the existing pricing, which was being based on the demand and supply, which is normally the OPEC or OPEC regional countries. But now the whole paradigm shift, which was being directly dependent upon how much is the current output in terms of the regime and output, how much is the gas or oil which is already in the vessels which were stuck or whatever days are 50, 60. So this requires a balancing act. This requires more than what is needed for the scope for enhancing the oil production with the balancing of the oil and gas demand supply chain, meaning in a way that right now the pricing regime of the oil, which was depending upon you have seen over the last 2 3 weeks or 1 week of negotiation and the conflict, that the price volatility is not directly straight away proportional to the
All right, Owais, what do you think that
there are other
as
factors
the production is expected to increase, so will the higher oil output lead to the lower fuel prices, or are geopolitical risks are likely to keep the price elevated and keep on unfolding, and there would be no relief for the general public?
Now, this is also quite a chicken and egg situation. It's quite a critical from the onslaught of the historical perspective. The answer to your question is yes. In the conventional way, in an orthodox way, the oil prices will come down when the production is coming. But it is a little bit beyond to that, because across the politics, geopolitical, from the energy security standpoint, for Iran, for specifically with the UAE, which has a greater impact on in a time to come as far as the Persian Gulf is concerned. So coming back to the main point, that it is not, in my opinion, it's not sure that the prices will go down in a ease out ways or in a tremendous way. But what is the point? What we need to take into account, that this, if we take Pakistan as an epicenter and the role of the Pakistan, which I get a little bit of earlier, a gentleman was commenting about our regime or our leadership skill set on to mediating, that should have to be complement trickle down effect in our contractual obligation, whether to be with the oil or whether to be gas in time to come. So that if your question also relates to the trickle down effect of its effect on Pakistan's market, this requires a high degree of a capacity right now, how we can balance ourselves in our demand and supply situation with reference to the international contracts, which we have to go in line to come pretty sooner in managing our million tons of oil equivalent balancing arrangement.
Well taken, well taken. Thank you so much, Owais Mir, for joining in Views at 7. We were joined by Mr. Owais Mir, who's energy expert, and we were discussing about the increase in production by OPEC+. So that's it from Views at 7. In tonight's Views at 7, we have discussed about the military spendings by India to the Independence Day celebrations of US, and obviously the global price hike, which general public is facing right now. We had views regarding 3 major developments from different countries of the world. That's it. This is your host, Manu Qureshi, signing off. Keep watching Pakistan TV.